This is a work of the Durham Church of Christ. Visit our website at durhamcoc.com.
As we seek to apply Matthew chapter 5 and verse 41, let's begin again by reading the verse. And whosoever shall compel thee to go a mile, go with him twain. We noticed in our previous lesson how this was applicable to the Jews who would have had been subject to the Roman government and Roman rule. And the Roman soldiers may have passed through, and in doing so, maybe coming through Jerusalem, at times would have required a Jew to go with him to meet his needs and his duties. And this would not have been something a Jew would have liked, because the Jews believed themselves to be a free people, as we notice in John chapter 8 in our previous lesson. And so this wouldn't have been something that they would have been very happy about. But Jesus here is saying, not only do you go a mile, you go two. If you are being asked to do something, even though it is being done out of your subjection to another, you don't just go through with it and really have a poor attitude is the implication here, but rather you go even beyond what is being asked of you. Well, let's apply this to us today, and let's do so by looking at two other relationships that exist today and are referred to and taught on within the Bible. Ephesians chapter 5 and verse 33. Nevertheless, let every one of you in particular so love his wife even as himself, and the wife see that she reverence her husband. It is a requirement based upon the commandments of God that the husband love the wife. What if the wife is being difficult? What if the wife is confusing and maybe doesn't make sense to the husband? Well, 1 Peter 3 and verse 7. Ephesians chapter 5 verse 33. Love your wife. Dwell with her. Understand her. Husband, love your wife. If she's being difficult, if it's a challenge, guess what? Don't go with her just a mile. Go with her too. Don't only just put up with her. No. Go beyond that. Care for her. Adore her. Show her benevolence, as we are commanded, husbands, in 1 Corinthians chapter 7 and verse 3. Do all that you can to care for her as your own body, as yourself. Go above and beyond. And to the wives, see that she reverence her husband. Wife, does this mean that the husband is to be reverenced just when he is loving you? No. It means the husband is to be revered even when maybe he is being difficult. Even when maybe he is being challenging. Or maybe when his attitude is improper. The wife is to reverence the husband. And even reverence him and care for him and view him in such a way that exalts him, just as Sarah called Abraham Lord. Again, 1 Peter chapter 3. Do so reverence him above and beyond, not just putting up with him. We see how we can apply the principle of Matthew chapter 5, verse 41 in the husband and wife relationship. But we also see how we can apply it in regards to the employee and employer relationship. In Ephesians chapter 6 and verse 5, it says, Servants, be obedient to them that are your masters according to the flesh, with fear and trembling and singleness of your heart, as unto Christ, not with eye service as man-pleasers, but as servants of Christ, doing the will of God from the heart, with good will, doing service as to the Lord and not to men, knowing that whatsoever good thing any man doeth, the same shall he receive of the Lord, whether he be bond or free. Here, this would have been a passage that would have applied to probably slaves, those who would have been in bondage to masters. Now, if the master was mistreating the slave, is the slave to then get a pass and an excuse as to not having to serve the master with a proper attitude and with all of his abilities? No, verse 6. No, the entire passage. As a matter of fact, if the servant is going to be pleasing unto the Lord, he is to not only do what the master commands of him, but in an opportunity to glorify Christ is to go even beyond such. How can we apply this today? Well, in our working environments. As we work, as we labor within our area of employment, if our employer tells us to do something, we ought not to say, I don't want to do it, and not do it. And we ought not to say likewise, well, I'm going to do it, but I don't want to. No. That's not a Christ-like attitude. That's not Matthew chapter 5, verse 41. We shouldn't have the mindset of, well, I'm going to call upon the labor union. How dare you tell me to do something? Or I'm going to file a lawsuit against you, or a case against you, or I'm going to really give you a hard time and really make your job difficult. No, that's not what an employee ought to be doing. An employee ought to be going above and beyond. Whatever the master requires of the employee ought to do it and do even more if he can. But likewise, we see instruction to the masters. And ye masters, do the same things unto them. Do the same things unto them. Forbearing, threatening, knowing that your master also is in heaven, neither is there respect of persons with him. Do the same things. Well, notice verse 6, not with eye service. Don't just treat your employee with eye service as if it is only being seen by men. No, realize that you have a master in heaven that is always watching you. And you then treat your employees with respect, with dignity. You don't allow them to threaten you and then in doing so lash out against them. Notice it says forbearing, threatening. An employer must be willing to take any type of criticism and difficulty that an employee might throw his way. How can we carry out Matthew chapter 5 verse 41 today? We can do so in the marriage relationship, and we can likewise do so in the employee and employer relationship. What an opportunity to glorify Christ today in these two areas of relationship.